Paul Ryan, the Republican Speaker of the House during the Trump administration and a close ally of Donald Trump at the time, just told the Fox Propaganda Network that Trump is unfit for office and a loser who has cost the Republican Party multiple elections. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to look at in this video. Paul Ryan was once the darling of the Republican Party. He was seen as the future of the Republican Party. It was one of the reasons why Mitt Romney selected him to run as his running mate in 2012 when they ran against President Obama and then Vice President Joe Biden. And then after Donald Trump became president, Paul Ryan became the Republican Speaker of the House, right? And again, he was a close legislative ally of Donald Trump. This man is a lifelong conservative Republican who wants the GOP to succeed. And now he is telling the Fox Propaganda Network to their faces and, Fox Propaganda viewers to their faces, metaphorically, that Trump is unfit for office and a loser. Two things that Donald Trump and Trump supporters want to hear the least. So we're going to play these clips and unpack it together.
Same concerns about Donald Trump that sort of said, all right, we're rallying around Donald Trump. You had said, though, that would not be the case with you. You had said that he's a populist and an authoritarian narcissist, that character is too important to me, and it's a job that requires the kind of character he just doesn't have. That's pretty strong.
Yeah, that's the way I feel.
That is devastating, folks. That is devastating to hear from a former Republican Speaker of the House, a former torchbearer for the GOP, and somebody, again, who worked very closely with Donald Trump. This is not somebody who is opining from the sidelines, who's never met Donald Trump or only met him in passing. This is somebody who was a close ally of the Trump administration, particularly during the first 2 years of the Trump administration, because that was when Donald Trump and the Republicans had majority control of Congress as well. And he unpacks more of the reasons as to why he thinks that Donald Trump is unfit for office. And again, we'll play the clips and unpack them together.
Voted for him in 2016, hoping that there was going to be a different kind of person in office. And I do think character is a really important issue. If you put yourself above the Constitution, as he has done.
But what happened?
I think that makes you unfit for office.
Was it the whole January 6th thing?
That's a part of it. I think it's a contribution of factors, but I think it really is just character at the end of the day. And the fact that if you're willing to put yourself above the Constitution, an oath you swear when you take office, in federal office, whether it's president or a member of Congress, you swear an oath to the Constitution. And if you're willing to suborn it to yourself, I think that makes you unfit for office.
Does it?
I think that is an eminently cogent and reasonable position to take. This is the thing. If you're a true constitutional conservative, which very few Republicans are these days, certainly very few in office, right? And Paul Ryan, you have to remember, resigned from Congress. He didn't seek re-election. He is now a civilian. So politically, it's easy for him to take this position, but it's the truth no matter what. And most Republicans in elected office simply don't have the courage to do what he's done, which is tell the truth. Donald Trump is an authoritarian, malignant narcissist, and he does not believe in the rule of law, and he doesn't believe in the Constitution. It's a cult. Again, we talked about this. Like, it's bad enough to put party above country. It really is. You should put country above party every time. But with Republicans these days, they actually take it one step further. They make it even worse, which is that they put person, Trump, above party, the Republican Party, and above country, right? So they are doubly as wrong. They're making twice the transgression, okay? But again, more clips from Paul Ryan as well as he makes his case to Neil Cavuto of the Fox Propaganda Network.
When he heard your comments, he posted this on Truth Social last month. Rupert Murdoch should fire this pathetic rhino, Paul Ryan, from the board of Fox. He said that Ryan is a loser, always has been, always will be. He was the weakest and most incompetent Speaker of the House in its history.
That's saying
Fox
something.
will sink to the absolute bottom of the pack if Paul Ryan has anything to do with it. You do serve on our board of directors, so he's saying you shouldn't.
Yeah. Look, I got death, taxes, and weird stuff from Donald Trump. These are the three certainties in my life. So to me, it's just another day in a life. Look, fealty to Trump is what rhino is, right? Meaning if you don't pledge fealty to this man, then you are a rhino. It used to mean a liberal Republican versus a conservative. I'm a conservative Republican. He's a populist. He's not a conservative. I want to see someone who has fidelity to principles. I would prefer a party that is based on principles, not personality or populism. This populism is untethered to principles, and that's why, I'm an anti-establishment Republican.
But you knew him early.
Great stuff from Paul Ryan. Again, everything he said was absolutely true. See, the term rhino, Republican in name only, predates Trump. It was around during the Mitt Romney Paul Ryan era. It was particularly used by the Tea Party, right? Is again this notion, as he says, of a Republican who is liberal because you're not a conservative, so you're Republican in name only. Paul Ryan says, listen, my conservative bona fides are beyond reproach. I am a conservative Republican, but Donald Trump is a populist. And it's true that we talked about this before in the show, in previous videos. Donald Trump is not a conservative, right? He is a darling of the right wing. He is the cult leader, the messianic figure at the center of the MAGA cult, but he himself is not a principled or ideological conservative. This is a guy who has no consistent ideology whatsoever. He'll say something on Monday, completely contradict himself on Tuesday, and then stake out a third position the next day after that. I mean, this is just how Trump is. And Trump's always been this way. I mean, you look at his political history, he was a Democrat for years, then a Republican, then an independent, then a Republican again. It's pretty clear based on his public statements in 2014, 2015, 2016, that he just looked at the Republican Party as the best vector by which to aggrandize himself, because the GOP, unfortunately, is much more likely to devote itself cultishly to a figure. You know, I compare the cult that surrounds Trump compared to the so-called cult of personality around President Obama, one of Paul Ryan's nemeses. It's just night and day. Now, President Obama was just objectively more popular than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, at the height of his presidency, could never crack that 50% threshold. He was always an unpopular president, and he never won the popular vote against any of his Democratic challengers. But there was much more division and dissent within the Democratic Party. People were much more willing to criticize President Obama, as they are with President Biden. You still have Democrats to this day, like Bernie Sanders or AOC and others, Cori Bush, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, who will criticize President Biden because it's not a cult. And they're not electorally punished for it. You know, Biden doesn't rant about them on Twitter or, call them up or threaten them or anything like that. Dissent is encouraged, perhaps too encouraged in the Democratic Party, because there are still times when we should close ranks and we don't. The Republicans, on the other hand, my God, if you dissent from Donald Trump in any meaningful way, you are punished. Look what happened to Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. These are people who voted with Donald Trump when he was president much more often than the likes of Matt Gaetz or even Jim Jordan. And yet, because their conservative bona fides made them value the Constitution and rule of law more than Donald Trump and more than their party ostracized them. That's how gross and cultish the GOP is. And Paul Ryan is very clear about this, that principle matters to him. Donald Trump is unprincipled, and the Republican Party, by extension, collectively, is unprincipled as well. It's really good that he's calling this sort of stuff out. Perhaps most importantly, though, Paul Ryan has some devastating truth to say about Donald Trump's record, right? His electoral record. The guy who wants to present himself as the ultimate winner is, in fact, in many ways, the biggest loser.
You support that?
He's cost us a lot of seats. I could probably spend some time and come up with the numbers. He cost us the Senate twice. He cost us the House because he is nominating. He is pushing through the primaries people who cannot win general elections, but who pledged fealty to him. That's not a good way to build and grow a party. Ever since 2016,
but what's the difference
we've been losing,
between that and what you
Paul Ryan is absolutely correct. Again, it's just simply Donald Trump is a threat. There's no question. And Donald Trump, I say this time and time again, and I understand, I get comments about it. I understand some of you don't want to hear this, but it is a fact, and I'm going to tell you whether you like it or not. There's a very good possibility that Donald Trump will win the 2024 election, and I will not pretend otherwise. He is a threat. He needs to be taken seriously in terms of the danger that he poses and the risk that he may become president again. But in terms of his record, Donald Trump is a loser, right? He won in 2016 by virtue of the Electoral College, which is the only reason that Republicans want to keep it around, is because it's affirmative action for their politics. It's the only way they can win the presidency, or so they believe. They don't even try to win people over. I digress. He lost the popular vote by 3 million votes to Hillary Clinton, who has been mocked and reviled as the least likable, least popular Democratic candidate in decades. Well, she still beat him by 3 million votes and would have won the White House if not for the Electoral College, a system, by the way, which no other advanced democracy on earth actually uses. Okay. And certainly none of the states use, right? They elect their governors, their chief executives. Our 50 states, the analog to the president, state governors, those are all elected by direct popular suffrage, right? But here, again, at the federal level, we have this ridiculous system that we need to get rid of. I digress. So he wins by the Electoral College, loses the popular vote, loses the House in 2018, basically cost Paul Ryan his job. He loses the Senate He lost the Senate in 2021, including Georgia, both seats in a red state. He lost the presidency in 2020. He loses the midterms effectively, the 2023 off years. Donald Trump's tenure as the leader of the Republican Party has been one L after another. The Trump alphabet politically is one W, barely, lowercase w, and 25 capital L's because it's that crappy of a record. And Paul Ryan is correct to point it out. So I can't imagine how convicted felon Donald Trump is going to react to this when he sees and hears about this, because he watches it obsessively. Paul Ryan is telling the truth about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is unfit for office. Donald Trump is an idiot, a loser, a man without principle. And it's good that the Fox propaganda viewers are actually hearing this because they don't hear it nearly as often. And credit, I will say, to Neil Cavuto, who's somebody we talk about in previous videos. He's not much of a commentator. He's a host, unlike Jessica Tarlov, and he's one of the more reasonable hosts that they have. Brett Baer, he just basically fell off the deep end, and Martha McCallum, Dana Perino, they're out-and-out Republicans who grade Donald Trump on a curve. But Neil Cavuto is one of the few, if not the only one, to actually have people on who are willing to defy Donald Trump and expound at length as to why they don't like him and why they think he's unfit for office. Great stuff. Let me know what you think in the comments.